Welcome everybody. The following video, in my opinion, is an important one. And it starts off a little slow and we rehash some subjects that we go over relatively often on this channel. But I really do hope that you'll make it through the entire video, because halfway through it, things really start to pick up, and it's, in my opinion, it's short, but there's some really important information in this video. So again, hopefully you won't just start watching it and only make it through 2 or 3 minutes. I really hope you'll watch the whole thing. Let's get right into it.
We're dealing with a somewhat complicated situation here, guys. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Because reality, as we've mentioned many times on this channel, exists on multiple different layers. And many of those layers, human perception currently doesn't even have a grasp on. They don't even know these layers exist. So I've said it once and I'm going to say it again. Reality, and forgive me, it's fucking cold and windy out here. Reality doesn't work the way that we've been led to believe that it works. You see, we've been led to believe that reality works a certain way, in my opinion, because it's productive and beneficial to the people steering culture, the people steering us, right? And don't try to tell me that there isn't a group here controlling things to a large extent. Who do you think produces all the food, guys? Right? You think 4,000 years ago they had fucking Safeways and Kroger's with all the lighting systems and foods from all around the country, sometimes foods from all around the world being flown in from different places at all times, foods that aren't even seasonal? You really think that there aren't people that control this matrix? You really think there aren't elite bloodlines, and I don't even want to call them elite, that run the show from behind the scenes, that provide all the power, right? So that you can run your blender at 3 a.m. if you want to? I mean, let's get real and let's look at what's going on here, folks. And don't try to tell me that they're not trying to steer culture, because they are. It's obvious. This isn't rocket science. If you can get even an ounce of your intuition back and you can calibrate your internal compass, your instincts will tell you this. This is not stuff that you learn in school, right? Your instincts, turning your brain on. No, they mold you in schools, fool. They're not teaching us about the Omni-reality. And what do I mean by that? It kind of reminds me of that movie Shrek. Ogres are like onions. Remember that scene where he's talking to Donkey? Reality is like a onion, folks. There are multiple layers. The shamanic layers, the etheric layers. I mean, it's insane. And I know this personally through inducing states of self-induced shamanism. Excuse me, again, it's cold out here. There is a lot around us at all times that we don't see because our perception has been changed. We only interact with the visible light spectrum. You ever looked at the entire electromagnetic spectrum on a graph? Go look it up. Google electromagnetic spectrum. Look at the visible light spectrum. That's where you and I currently exist. There are creatures in this reality, such as the serpent, whose perception goes beyond the visible light spectrum. There are ways for us to awaken our brain, our body, our physiology, and our consciousness so that we too can exist beyond the visible light spectrum. But we exist in a suboptimal state while thinking that we've got it all figured out, right? We're the apex predator. We're the top of the food chain. No, we're not. We are not on the top of the hierarchical list of predators, folks. In fact, we're part of the lowerarchy. You ever heard of that term? The lowerarchy? You see, they want you to think that you're the sum total of evolution and that you're part of the human species, right? We're so evolved, we're so advanced. Really? Because we only use a small percentage of our capabilities. So how could we even be advanced? How could you contemplate that? Well, it's easy to contemplate that. It's easy for you to believe that. Because you've never questioned any of this. And I'm not just talking about pondering it in your mind. I'm talking about finding the answer to the questions that you have. If you even have them. Remember, Trinity in the first Matrix film tells Neo it's the question that drives us. What do you think that means? You can question things until the sun goes down and comes back up again. But if you don't put your will into answering those questions through experience, you'll never have the answers. And more often than not, the answers come through cataclysm. It's not easy to wake up. Remember the scene in The Matrix where they're driving in the Lincoln Continental, I think it is. Awesome car. And Neo's looking out the window. He says something to the effect of, I used to get noodles there. I used to think this is also real. Look at his body language in that scene. He's shocked. His body's undergoing shock, his mind. Because he was waking up to a reality that's far bigger than the one he was led to believe. However, if you watch the beginning of the Matrix film, pay attention when he's sleeping at the computer. Before, I can't remember who knocks on the door. They talk about, I think, mescaline or peyote. He calls Neo his own personal Jesus Christ. Do you not see the symbolism in this, as well as the 101 on the door? What I'm trying to say here is that the movie did a good job at making it firmly understandable to the viewer, if he or she's paying attention, that Neo's been searching for answers. He's questioning everything on such a deep level that it becomes his will, unbending intent, unbreakable will to unravel the truth. You see, that's what you have to have here. And that's not something that's easy to come by. In my opinion, you either have it or you don't. And I'm not going to get into some huge rant about that right now. It's the question that drives us to find the answers. And the real answers to the questions don't come from Google articles and DuckDuckGo searches and Reddit threads. The body and the mind produces the answers to the neophyte, to the initiate. You know what neophyte is? I've always thought that there's maybe a connection between neo and neophyte, as well as the neocortex of the brain, but that's a subject for a completely different rant. Excuse me for getting off subject. My battery's at 4%, so I'm going to have to make this one a quick rant. It's the question that drives us. The body and the mind can show you, folks. You can enter states of consciousness that show you the bigger picture, that can open you up to the bigger picture. And once you get a glimpse of the bigger picture, once you get a glimpse of the eagle's emanations, as an example, using a Castaneda term, look it up, the eagle's emanations. Once you see the truth, you will be forever changed. Man. Shamans have known for thousands of years, medicine men, brujos, diableros, etc., that the world does not work the way that the average person has been led to believe it does, that there are multiple, complicated, moving, intricate parts that lie beyond the scenes. What do you think this is? Do you really think that reality is just what you've been led to believe? Is your ego that huge? You see, real knowledge, real Gnosis humbles you. It teaches you that in the greater scheme of things, you don't know anything. This world is incredibly complicated, and it's infinite, folks, and you're a part of that infinite. And God, at least if you ask me, in my opinion, has a way of communicating with us in this infinite so that we don't get, I don't want to say ripped to shreds, but the Kundalini is how we navigate through this through it gives us the Gnosis that we need, which is the direct knowledge, the download from God through Christ, which is the Kundalini risen. With Kundalini lit, our energy field reestablishes itself. You can see the thousands of intricate layers of your aura. And in this state of Gnostic consciousness, the truth is given to you while you're in the flesh. Everything makes sense again, right? We're supposed to be whole, but we've been separated from this energy. And it's due to this separation. This is the fall, if you ask me. The fall of man, the fall of woman. What do you think the Adam and Eve story is? The fall? Adam and Eve are the Ida and the Pingala. These two sacred channels that Kundalini moves up around the central axis mundi, which is the Sushumna, the main channel that Christ moves up the back. When this energy gets in the head and bridges the schism between the right and left lobes of the brain, you become the androgyne, the androgynous enlightened Christ being. And it is through this Christ energy that life is reinvigorated and funneled through our meridians that are currently in a state of dormancy. And when this energy moves through this body and your mind, you now are with your father. You're now with your mother. You see, it's a hard thing to explain, folks. But we're supposed to be connected to the Heavenly Father and the earthly mother and her angels through Kundalini. And it is through this Kundalini that the auric field, which is far more complicated than you currently know. This is a science, folks, the aura. It is through this auric field that the various Enochian angels, a hierarchical group of I don't want to call them celestial beings. These beings, these ancestral angels are supposed to be with us. We're supposed to be able to see them, interact with them. What do you think heaven is? Do you think you're disconnected from God in heaven? No. Earth is a paradise. And the promised land is your brain. But the brain's been shut off. The cabeza is currently not working the way it's supposed to. We're in a fallen state, folks. It's that simple. It is undeniable for those with eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts to feel. If your metaphysical antennas are even partially erect and upright, you're going to sense this. So the world is evil. The material realm, the matrix. I'm not talking about nature, even though it has its flaws, if you ask me. The matrix is evil. It is a soul harvester by way of keeping you away from your body and your mind's full potential, because in this state, which the full potential is Kundalini, you're no longer in a fallen state. But they've created a world where it's exceptionally difficult to see through the nonsense and walk the narrow channel. They've also, for those who become aware of this hidden channel, because the fools take the wide road, right? The wise take the narrow channel that's hidden. But for those who become aware of the narrow channel instead and start trekking the tundra of that channel, if you will, life becomes even more difficult than when you are an unconscious little sheep. Because just like Tahuti tells us in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, also known as Thoth or again Tahuti, when an individual ignites the fire is Kundalini. The archons prey on him or her. He doesn't refer to them as archons, but these are the gatekeepers of knowledge, and knowledge is being kept from us, folks. Now you can ask that, well, if God loves us so much, why isn't God here to help us? God is here to help us. God is within you. What do you think? Because this life is difficult, that God's not with you? Of course God's with us. But it's our job as a co-creator with God to wake the fuck up. You see, we have the spark of the divine within us, meaning we are an extension. We have an extension of God's spirit, God's will. This is a remarkably large puzzle reality. And we've got to get the pieces to fit again. My battery's about to die, and I don't want to lose this content. Peace be with you.